What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode number 97 here on Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and what a fun show we have for you guys tonight as we cover Pacific Classic Day and all stakes associated on Saturday, August 31st. Welcome in, everybody. Oh, what the hell? All right, I don't know. Host fail starting off real quick, guys. Apologies for that. Anyway, thank you guys all so much for joining. Greatly appreciate as we have a really fun show for you guys with the help of special guest Ryan Anderson from NYRA Racing to help you guys cover. I got two West Coast guys sticking with me tonight, West Coast bias, as well as Ryan, as he's a younger guy as well, trying to promote the game to the Gen Z crowd at NYRA. So always happy to have people on like that, but he's a great guy and definitely will help you guys score big this week at NYRA, as he knows NYRA like the back of his hand. So let's get going real quick, guys. Of course, you all know the drill. If you guys please go down below the video player here, please hit the like button and please hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton because not only does it show us that you guys are completely enjoying the content, but also it pushes this podcast and others on the channel out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. At the end of the ticker going on the bottom of the screen right now, you'll see we have live shows, of course, every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Monday for Horsin Around, which is a recap and a short recap of the previous weekend's races, as well as a look forward to our shows for this week. Wednesday is our normal slot, Bettin N Boozin at 8 p.m. Eastern. On Wednesday, of course, now we're doing it on Thursday to cover NYRA for you guys. And Thursday is normally Picks and Ponies with Howard, Pete, and Paul. So please tune into all our live shows throughout the week. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor, guys, is, of course, where you can find every single episode that's posted here on the HHH Racing Podcast Network, whether it be Horsin Around, Bettin N Boozin, or Picks and Ponies, all on audio. Please go Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor, and please rate, review, and subscribe, guys. Saratoga and NYRA Power Picks are still available for this week. I know it's getting to closing day at Saratoga here. They're still available if you want to get in on the final week. Of course, discounted for those that are subscribed to our normal Power Picks through Patreon. It is $15.99 for the full weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of price play, spot plays, pick 5 grids, everything you need to crush your bets this at any weekend, either at Saratoga or NYRA. Go to hhhracingpodcast.com for those courses on the screen now. The link is also in the description. There's a bunch of tabs at the top of the screen. Click on the Power Picks tip sheet tab, and that'll take you right to the Saratoga and NYRA Power Picks section. Of course, NYRA Power Picks, as mentioned before, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast comes out to you every single Saturday for only $4 every weekend. $15.99 a month is how Patreon bills it. We have over a $2.18 ROI since February of 2021, and it continues to rise, all in the black. So please go subscribe to the Power Picks, and you won't want to miss out, again, on those price plays, spot plays, pick 5 grids, anything you need to crush your bets every single Saturday comes your way through the Power Picks. Again, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. And as mentioned before, if you want to learn more about the podcast, or if you want to see previous editions of those Saratoga Power Picks or the normal Power Picks, NYRA Power Picks, whichever ones you want to see previous editions of, please go to hhhracingpodcast.com. That is all. And of course, that is all there, and the link is in the description. Guys, we'll bring on our co-hosts, of course, and our special guests, and we will go through the chat, and then we'll get right into the racing for you guys again as we cover all stakes at NYRA, all graded stakes, might I add. It is races 4, 5, 9, 10, and 11. It's a fantastic card, of course, headlined by the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. Bringing on my co-host real quick. Charlie is coming, I believe. He's just having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. Blame the Ohio State internet, letting everyone down just like they did last year in football. But this week, I have the two West Coast guys, at least for now. Noah Maher is laughing at that one. Noah Maher, West Coast bias, my friend. Noah, what's going on? How you doing?
What's up? That was a low blow to start the show. I love it.
Dude, I had 1 year of glory, my man. I have to get it in whenever I can. But of course, bringing on our special guest, intern at NYRA, host of the Gallop Out here on YouTube. I'll let him explain more where you guys can find him throughout the show. But helping us chop up this Pacific Classic card, our special guest. We're very happy to welcome on Ryan Anderson. Ryan, what's going on, my man?
How's it going? Stoked to be here on Bettin N Boozin. Excited to break down this card. Pacific Classic Day at Del Mar. Yeah, Del Mar, as you said, is basically my backyard. I'm there really every single day, even before I work there. So now it's nice to get paid at a place that I, was going to be at anyway.
That's right,
Can't
man.
go wrong.
And got to lead up to the Breeders' Cup as well this November. Ryan, before we start, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but just explain, for those that don't know you, I don't know what you guys are doing. He's absolutely crushing pick fives every single day, it seems like, on his Twitter at 20 Lakes Clear, you see in his name tag. But yeah, just give a little bit of synopsis about yourself and what you do over at Del Mar.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, I'm an intern over at Del Mar, so they have me kind of doing a little bit of everything. I do a lot of stuff on the marketing and sponsorship side, which has been really cool. I've been introduced to some of the local handicappers who have then allowed me to kind of branch out, mainly through Twitter. Went to a cool Santa Anita event, last weekend. Tom Quigley and I have, been talking a lot. Thank you, Matt. I just saw the comment down there. But yeah, I'm excited to be on this podcast. Bettin N Boozin and then the HHH Racing Podcast are two of the ones that I've kind of followed pretty close. And yeah, as you mentioned, I mainly play pick fives and pick sixes. I swing for the fence or miss and try again another day. So
no, and like I said, and you fit right in with the crowd, at least on the screen to the top right over there, as well as of course, Howard, Pete, and Paul, as we call them, serial horizontal players. But either way, Ryan, you got a lot of love in the chat real quick, so we'll go through that. And, of course, then we'll get right into the show. Racing Downwind is here asking where Katie was, but she said he was here before both of us. They were the one waiting. So, Katie, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Of course, Boss is here. Way excited for the big show. Tom Espinoza is here. Good afternoon. Of course, those on the West Coast, it's only 5 o'clock out there. Yeah. As you can see through Ryan's window, of course, it's still daylight. It's getting a little bit darker for me here at 7 p.m. in the Midwest. But either way, Racing Downwind says, Ryan, welcome to Bettin N Boozin and No Losin podcast. Young Guns of Horse Racing. Of course, Ryan fits right in to that as well. Howard says, let's have a nice warm welcome for another talented young man. Ryan Anderson, always trying to promote the game to the Gen Z crowd. As we all know, we need to. Terry Frank, Matt Miller, of course, the man himself, of course. Oh God, why can't I think of it? Better Way of Thinking. Wow, I blanked on that so hard. Better Way of Thinking. Get your books if you haven't already. Matt Miller, thanks a lot for joining the show. And Paul Conlon can see clearly now that the BNB boys are on the air. Paul, thanks so much for joining the show, man. Greatly appreciate it. To you, hopefully I see you at Keeneland this meet. And of course, we already showed that Matt's welcome Ryan, and Paul Conlon says boozing at the Belly Up Tavern. Ryan is, I'm sure, is what the joke is around your background. But either way, man. Actually, hey, look at that. Taco Bell Wi-Fi boy is here. We'll bring him on. Got to give him a little bit. Charles Freeman. Charlie, what's going on, man? And he's
not much.
there you go.
Can you hear me? Everything good?
All good, Chief.
All right, we're just gonna ride the wave and see how long it lasts. I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know. Everything was fine. I was able to get the handicapping done. And then next thing you know, all of a sudden everything starts freezing. I'm trying to move my tabs, and then I see no Wi-Fi. I don't know. Even the Bluetooth wasn't working with the hotspot. But we're here now. Wi-Fi's on. Full bars for now. We're just gonna ride the wave as long as it lets me go.
He missed the low blow that I gave him at the start. He can go.
Oh no, I heard it. I heard it. I just honestly, I'm just trying to get it going before the Wi-Fi inevitably crashes.
You're good, bro. We'll get it going here. Of course, cheers to everyone out there as we go for a fantasy. And Ryan gets him, my man. He's in. Either way, guys, cheers to everyone out there. Let's have a great Pacific Classic day. And of course, we'll start off with race number 4, is like to call it the Tiger Woods Playground Stakes or the Torrey Pines. It is for 1 mile for fillies 3 years old on the dirt. And the number 1 Simply Enchanting, guys, I want to bring up right now is scratched, as you'll see on the screen right now. She was scratched this morning, very early scratch. She was a pretty big player in this race as well. So Simply Enchanting is out, which leaves us with a field of 7 and a very heavy morning line favorite in this one, the number 3, Hope Road for Juan Hernandez, Bob Baffert at 4-5. Your second choice now is Desert Rhapsody, Free Sue for Doug O'Neill at 4-1. And third choice, the number 7, Nothing Like You, Kazashi Kimura for Bob Baffert at 9-2. And guys, we'll bring up the picks right now. We are 2-2 to start off the show this afternoon. And you'll see Charlie and I are both going with the number 7. Nothing Like You. Both Noah and Ryan have the 7 in second, but they're both going with the aforementioned morning line favorite, Hope Road, Hernandez and Baffert. Ryan, we'll let you go first on a lot of these. But it's Team West Coast versus Team East Coast, apparently, in this one, which might not bode well for me and you, Charlie. But either way, Ryan, I'll let you start first. What you like most about the number 3, Hope Road?
Yeah, he really just seemed to wake up when he got transferred into Bob Baffert's barn. I don't know if that was the private purchase or just a plain trainer switch, but you can see the Buyers 2 back, and then his last time out improved 9 points over that, both in front running fashion. And then Baffert going 2 sprints to the route. I know he's had, prior races with Sadler, but the 2 sprints to the route angle is one I really like. I know he is switching off Lasix here, but that's not really a concern for me. He's faced some decent competition. He's gone through his 2 conditions. This is a logical spot. We know Baffert, he places him in a grade 3. That's nothing crazy for him. So I think this is a very logical spot for Hope Road.
Yeah, no, obviously you agree. The thing that I like, we don't know if this horse can go longer. He hadn't run well. Granted, it was in the Del Mar Debutante, I believe is what that race is, the grade 1, at going 7 last in the fall. So obviously didn't run very well, but losing to Tamara that time of year obviously wasn't very bad at all. Has shown the ability to close at 5. Now stretching out, do you because this horse has had very easy leads the last 2, Noah, do you see this horse gunning for the lead coming from sprints going to routes, or how do you see the trip enveloping for Hope Road?
I think JJ's smart enough to not duel with the 4. If the 4 just goes ballistic, I think he can probably sit right off with her. I think she's probably just more classy than the 4. Ryan touched on it. He's a very astute guy, and that's why we brought him on here.
That's right.
Baffert's just going through the conditions, and Ryan, that actually was a private purchase. Cicero Farms bought her after that 3rd start. You got it kind of right, Kyle. She's had some easy leads, but she really hasn't, faced anybody. So I guess the question could be the distance, but the Dan Marley's Freedom she wasn't necessarily 2 turns, but she was more 7 furlongs to 1 turn mile. So I don't think the distance should be a concern, but I do like the way that you guys are going. I think the other Baffert is probably the alternative that's very intriguing.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Obviously, we all have the 7-3 top 2. We all think it's a pretty good 2-horse race here between the 2 Bafferts. Charlie, time form has it the way I saw it. The thing that concerns me is the way the track's been playing. Obviously, the West Coast guys can touch to this as well. Just not a whole lot of closing going on at Del Mar right now, which could be, the means to the end for me and you right here. But there's a lot. I mean, the 3, the 4, as Noah touched on, but also the 6 Grand Slam Smile is not slow on the front end as well. So you would think if, maybe Juan Hernandez takes back with Hope Road, there's still going to be at least some pace to run into, right, with Desert Rhapsody and Grand Slam Smile for Nothing Like You.
Yeah, no, I certainly think that it will be. But I think the other thing with Nothing Like You is this horse is by no means a true closer. I mean, you look at some of the races and, her runs in 2023, and she was on or right behind the lead. And even, in that incredible effort where she beat Kinza and won going away by 7 lengths, she was always within a length. And even last time out until, Sugarfish got the rail and rolled on by that field was always within touch and distance. And that's what I like about her is I just think she'll realistically sit, within 2 lengths of the speed and will be sitting that nice stalking trip. And I think, if Noah's right and it ends up being the 4 and 6 go, then maybe, maybe Baffert has her sit a length behind the 3 horse. And if all of them go, I think she just sits right behind and works out a nice trip. And I also just think, again, she was running against Kinza. She's been running against tougher. And some of these like Noah touched on, I think it's fair with, they know the West Coast better than I do, that they just had to meet conditions to get here. Whereas I think for Nothing Like You, this is kind of almost a slight, drop down or more horizontal move to facing similar, and I think could get a really nice trip. And I also just like the price a lot more. I think we talk about this all the time, is if you're giving me 4 to 5 on a Baffert horse, they'll probably be right around there, and you're giving me 9 to 2. We talk about, the other chat on the East Coast, and sometimes on the West, I know Noah's told me about this, that you do have to look out for the other Baffert. And if I can get anywhere near 9 to 2 on Nothing Like You with this trip, I love the horse here.
The other Baffert, the other Chad, you just got to look out for these types of horses. But either way, no, I completely agree with you on Nothing Like You. I think I like that she's been in these graded stakes. Baffert's had her in this type of condition. Like you said, the only thing I don't necessarily like that concerns me a little bit with Nothing Like You is I don't like these kind of one number horses, quote unquote. You see that 91 two back. She hasn't had anything near that in any of her other races. She's really a mid to high 70s buyer horse, at least based on the numbers in her previous. So that's the one thing that does concern me, is the one race where she absolutely exploded is the one number she has that can probably beat a horse like Hope Road. But with the pace scenario, I think it's either the 3 or the 7. And as Charlie touched on, 9-2 for me is a lot better than 4-5. And I know that might cause some people to faint in the chat, me not picking a 4-5 horse and a 9-2 horse instead. But I just like the price a lot more. And I think she's going to get a very similar trip to that of the Santa Anita Oaks. So if Kimura is going to have her in that similar position, I agree with you. Ryan, we'll go to you. You and I are both in agreement underneath with the number 4 Desert Rhapsody. To me, it almost just seemed like kind of the only other one that really got me at least a little excited based on numbers. Doug O'Neill obviously brings her into this spot, gets Frisu, who's his number 1 call. Just makes a lot of sense, but is going to have to navigate, that speed kind of trip.
Yeah, definitely. I was there for the last race. I was actually able to watch that down on the rail. This horse, Desert Rhapsody, seemed to just have the light bulb turn on after that maiden win last out. I know the buyer fig wasn't great, but then, that last out, the optional claimer with the 89 came out and ran a really good race. That was a pretty competitive field. As you can see, she was 16-1 and she blew the doors off that field. Her ears were up. She was just having a nice little time. I had used Wine on Tap, I think, as my single in there. That clearly did not go well for me. That is what it is. But this horse, Desert Rhapsody, kind of makes sense. Obviously, as my third choice. Couldn't really get off those 2 Bafferts because if you use one, you almost have to use the other with how they go. But Desert Rhapsody, I think, is a logical second choice. And I know Frisu, I believe Frisu's going to send and try to get the lead and then kind of make Hope Road adjust. Kind of make all the others kind of adjust. Obviously, Grand Slam Smile is definitely going to be a pace presence to the outside. But I think Frisu is going to show some intention on getting to the lead here. And then, we'll just see how far she can take him.
I agree with you completely, and that's why I have her in third. Just think the other 2 Bafferts maybe a little bit of a step above, but I like Desert Rhapsody, maybe hold on for a piece third or, trifecta, superfecta type of thing. We'll move on, guys, real quick, but Charlie has Grand Slam Smile. She's 8 for 8 for a top 2. Obviously done nothing wrong. Just maybe looks a little slow on paper based on numbers for a field like this. Been running in a lot of state bred competition, so might need to take a step up, but definitely could be one underneath. Obviously hasn't done anything wrong in her career. And Noah has the 2 Sohos actually coming over from Turf. Noah, I'll let you talk about this one because this one's kind of a little bit of an off the wall type of pick. Coming from Turf to Dirt for Sadler, who obviously has been working lights out on the dirt. Maybe she kind of worked her way here. But what was your kind of angle with Soho real quick? Then we'll move on.
Yeah, Soho would kind of be my wacko. Maybe somebody I try to get underneath either Hope Road or the 7. You don't see this often where you get a horse that's run 5 or 6 times on the turf and then all of a sudden they throw him in a grade 3 race on a surface that they've never been on. Right. But like you said, this horse is working really well, and I don't think somebody like John Sadler would throw this horse in a race like this if they weren't ready. It's a very odd move, but I think this could be the horse that could kind of get that stalking trip like the 7 could. I think if there were any horses to kind of improve or show improvement, I think this might be the one. Also for West Point. So.
Right. And I mean, obviously 625 on the purchase. Carrie Bell was a turf horse in her own right, but has, 4 for 10 dirt sprinting, obviously 0 for 3 on routes, but official business, not obviously running at the top competition, and Booze Runner as well, running in that same type of, she has winners on dirt, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But obviously a turf meant horse for her, and Soho has only done her good running on turf as well. But like you said, working very forwardly, probably worked her way here. And I agree with you. Maybe John Sadler's not one to just throw her to the wolves in this one. So maybe interesting at a double-digit price. I'm going 734. Charlie's going 736. Noah's going 372. And Ryan's going 374. Guys, we'll move on from the Tiger Woods Playground Stakes onto race number 5, the Del Mar Handicap, going 1 mile and 3/8, 3 turns on the Del Mar turf course for $300,000. I'll switch over the Equibase right now. It's 1 mile and 3/8 for 3-year-olds and up. And this is another early scratch in this race. The number 4, There Goes Harvard was scratched earlier this morning, which leaves a field of 7. The morning line favorite, which I actually thought was a little interesting, was the number 7 Gold Phoenix, Kyle Frey for Phil D'Amato at 5-2. Second choice is shared between Balnikov, the 1 to the inside for D'Amato, and Kimura at 3-1, and Masterpiece at 3-1 as well for JJ Hernandez and Rick Dutrow. And your fourth choice is the number 5 Rock Emperor, Frisu, and D'Amato. D'Amato's got 3 in here and 3 of the top 4 favorites. I'll bring up the picks right now. Ryan, you and I lockstep again, my friend, going 7. The 7 Gold Phoenix on top. Charlie's going with Balnikov, who's actually a lot of us have in 3rd, but Charlie's got him on top. And Noah's going off the wall as we have Rock Emperor nowhere. Noah, I'll let you touch on first, and then me and Ryan will talk about Gold Phoenix. But yeah, you're the wild card here, going with Rock Emperor. And I'll be honest with you, I talked to you before when you sent me this. This was the one horse that I really just didn't know what to do with in this race. So I'm really interested to hear, what'd you like most about the number 5 Rock Emperor?
Well, I thought the 1, 5, 6, and 7 were very interchangeable. I decided to throw out the 7 just because I think he's going to take a lot of money off of that trouble trip last time, and I don't know if he was really going to do much better. But I ended up going with Rock Emperor. This is basically a horse that's danced every dance. I know he's 8, and I know he hasn't won in a while. But I think those two things might play into me getting a better price. It's Freyzoot's D'Amato. And that last race in the San Juan Capistrano, I thought was a huge effort. Got ran down by a pretty good horse in Planetario. But I thought it was a winning effort. I know I don't have to worry about him going the mile and 3/8. It's just a matter of whether Freyzoot can sit the trip. And I think this might be, I don't know if I necessarily agree with time form. I think this will probably be the most tactical D'Amato in the race.
Yeah, and I'll show the time form right now. You see the 3 is actually out in front, Balladeer, that's what Balladeer loves to do, is go out and probably not hang on. It's usually how it goes for Balladeer. But you have the 2, 6, and 7 behind Dicey Mochara, Masterpiece, and Gold Phoenix. And then the number 5, Rock Emperor, is sitting just behind them. Time form, Noah believes that he'll be a little bit closer, which I don't, I could definitely see in this race. I feel like all 4 of those are kind of in that same place where they can either sit first flight or sit second flight. I think they have a little bit of interchangeability to them. Charlie, I'll let you talk about Balnikov after Gold Phoenix, because we actually all like Balnikov, except for Ryan in 3rd. Charlie, obviously you have him on top, but Gold Phoenix, Ryan, is a horse that I want to touch on. I didn't think this horse would be the morning line favorite. I get that he's danced every dance, has run well. Really hasn't run a bad step in the last like 8 races on the form. Last race had an excuse, and then in the American, off the layoff in the Breeders' Cup, maybe make some excuses there going into the very talented Johannes. So obviously you and I both have this horse on top. What'd you like most about Gold Phoenix? And I'll show the replay of the Eddie Reed as well to kind of, I'm sure that's going to lead into some of your points.
Yeah, definitely to some of them. I think the number 1, though, is that that mark on the distance. It's these 2 for 2. I think this distance just hits him between the eyes. Obviously, we're about to watch the replay here. He's going to have a bit of a troubled trip. And I think that that's a big playback angle. I was kind of disappointed to see that he was the morning line favorite. I was hoping maybe, he could get a bit of a break here with that one. But unfortunately, the price is what the price is. But to me, that made me land on the top pick. With Gold Phoenix. Just no chance last out. Loves Del Mar. I believe 3 for 5 on the turf course, if I'm not mistaken, and then 2 for 2 at this distance. Winner of this race last year. Beat me last year. I'm not going to let that happen 2 years in a row. Obviously D'Amato on turf out here is Chad Brown in New York. So it's just one of those you always have to keep an eye out for. And he's going to be a threat pretty much no matter what with any of his entrants. But yeah, Gold Phoenix off the trouble last trip. And then, again, loving this distance are the 2 reasons that made me pick him on top.
Yeah, and you'll see Gold Phoenix right here is galloping out with Johannes, the winner. And maybe there's a couple of things for me. Obviously, the trouble trip, Kyle Frey had absolutely nowhere to go. And once he got a little bit of room, started to explode towards the top, and then finally galloped out with the winner at the end there. Also, maybe just a little bit shorter than what this horse wants to do. Has run great 1.25 miles, run great at 1.5 miles. Actually, and 2 for 2 at the 1 3/8 miles at Del Mar, including a win in this race last year, as you mentioned, Ryan. So I don't know if this horse will I think this horse will be co-favorite. I think other horses that we'll talk about are going to get bet down, which is why I have a best bet later like I do. But I think 5-2 is even fair on this horse. Like I said, that last race, just absolutely nowhere to go. Complete excuse, plus shorter. I think what this horse wants to do. Fourth off the layoff, third, second off of a little bit mini layoff from May to the end of July. I just think this is a prime Gold Phoenix race and should set up pretty well for him. Has closed into cold, has closed into hot paces, can do it all. I just think Gold Phoenix is prime here. And speaking of that, Gallop Out. Tune into the Gallop Out and subscribe to them on YouTube. That link is in the description, but we'll talk about that later in the show. Charlie Balnikov, and Ryan kind of mentioned it. The distance might be a question mark, so I'm interested to hear what you want to say. Here closed really well in the Eddie Reed, closed into Johannes. Obviously, no one was beating him that day. But what'd you like most about the horse on the inside, Balnikov?
Yeah, I mean, I think what kind of stuck out to me, first off, I thought the effort two back at Pimlico was one where I didn't have this horse anywhere, and I was kind of just thought was a huge question mark coming over from Golden Gate and won at 5-1. And then I just honestly thought held form pretty well. The pace wasn't exactly there to set up for him as, a horse that's typically more of a deeper closer. So I didn't really think, it was meant for him, and he had to go pretty wide off the turn. And I thought he closed really nicely late and showed that great turn of foot that I, saw when he won at Pimlico too. So I think he's getting into form. Also, these are the kind of races that I always think are scary. These I like to call them, the retirement home or senior home races. Not that the horses need to hang it up, but, when you see the young guns in the race or 5-year-olds, I think these races are always the ones where, sort of chaos can happen. You see a lot of similar level horses that you don't really know how much they have left in the tank. And I think some people in the chat have touched on it too. There's some horses in here that have, been great in their heyday, but haven't won in a while. And I just think this is one who, not that it's a major change in figures, but is weirdly sort of starting to figure things out again and improve. Whereas I think some of these other ones have kind of plateaued and are maybe on a slight regression where, look, because of who they've ran against and what their figures are, it's nothing like to be alarmed about and think they don't have a chance here. But I just wanted to go with one of, the younger, quote unquote, fresher faces that at least seems to be on the improvement. And I also just think that I'll get more than 3-1 here, to be honest. I think this is one that'll float up. And again, in a race that I think is pretty open, I just wanted to go elsewhere. I'll briefly touch on the 6 and let you guys go into it as well, because I know we all have this horse somewhere. Masterpiece, obviously being the one that, isn't typically over in Cali, came over from the East Coast. Horse I know well from watching at, some GP races where this horse wasn't as successful and has been better at other tracks. And of course, beat Ottoman Fleet 2 back. And I thought also was kind of one that sneakily had a little bit of trouble, was kind of sitting a really nice trip. And then off the turn, didn't really have anywhere to go exactly once they got in the stretch and then figured it out. I just think my one knock on Masterpiece, because I was going to put this one on top, is just the reality that the horse is 8 years old now. Obviously still running great figures, but I just think the question is, does he have a repeat effort left in him, or, how much of it was the trouble he incurred and how much of it is maybe that he is, again, 8 years old and starting to slow down a little bit.
No, and Brian, the one thing I want to bring up is that Charlie kind of brought it up, is kind of that East Coast to West Coast angle. I know a lot of people like to follow, especially for the turf. People are always saying, East Coast turf is always better than West Coast turf. So when you get one shipping over, it's obviously a big upgrade. Plus, last time, as Charlie kind of touched on, the Eddie Reed didn't really had a little bit of excuse. I think not as much as Gold Phoenix, but had a little bit of excuse down the stretch last time out. Obviously has won at the Mile and 3/8 before in the Red Smith last year. You kind of take that into consideration. Obviously, I think, do we all have this horse second? Yeah, every single one of us has this horse in second. So you kind of take that into consideration. And, what was your thinking kind of with Masterpiece? Was it with Charlie or kind of, a little bit out of the different thinking?
It was similar. I loved this horse last time out. When I saw Dylan Davis was leaving his hot Saratoga meet to come and make this one mount on his day, or on that day, I thought, that was kind of tipping the hat. I didn't love the trip that he got. I thought he should have been a little more forward in that race. Should have tried to get the jump on Johannes, but it is what it is. I'm happy to see that he stuck out here. I think they're just trying to get this horse, a graded stakes win to get into the Breeders' Cup. Come November, it's going to be out in Del Mar. This horse does enjoy the trip at Del Mar with 3 in the money, first and second out of 4 trips. Does like this distance. So I think maybe the ship over from the East Coast just maybe took a little bit of starch out of him. Hopefully, maybe the second off the quick layoff, second time in familiar territory, he's going to be, a little more in shape, a little mentally, more aware this time. And hopefully, I'm hoping for a big shot here. And nobody knows this turf course better than Juan Hernandez. So that's a jockey upgrade. No disrespect to Dylan Davis. That guy is awesome. But Juan Hernandez out in Del Mar, he doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, Noah doesn't disagree with you either. Noah, this last thing we'll touch on, and then I'll go to one more horse underneath, and we'll move on. But Masterpiece in this race, the one thing I like about him is I think this is the other horse that has the ability to be really tactical. That Fort Marcy trip is kind of the thing I think that Juan Hernandez is going to try and get for this horse. You get to jump on a horse like Gold Phoenix. That might be the key to victory in a race like this.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I actually didn't love him in that Eddie Reed, and I think I would probably have him on top in here. But I thought he got a pretty reasonable trip. I know the comments say boxed upper stretch, but I really didn't think it was that bad. But I do like the fact that he got the run over the course.
Yep.
He's been here for a while. I feel like people that just like bet east to west shippers blindly are kind of clowns because it takes it out of horses to ship across the country, and people don't really think about that. But obviously, you have to put stock in Juan Hernandez hopping up aboard for Rick Dutro.
Yeah.
And then I can touch. Is there somebody else we need to touch on, or are we good?
I was going to touch on Ryan's two real quick. Dicey Mochara. That's really the only horse we didn't talk about. But go ahead if you want to touch on him, then we'll move on real quick.
Yeah, definitely. This was another just kind of second off the layoff pick. For me, that's a really nice angle that I like, especially for Leonard Powell. His barn has been heating up throughout the meet. I saw this horse schooling in the paddock the other day, just walking to, the next place I had to be, just looked like a beast. Decided not to ask Leonard Powell his thoughts on him, but, clearly that horse made a decent run last time out with Jeremy Laprida. This time gets Hector Barrios. And, for anybody that knows Del Mar, Hector Barrios also great turf rider. Knows the course really well, rides really well. And I think this is going to turn into a bit of a jockey's race with some of these. A lot of them are kind of heavy hitters who have faced each other, numerous times. It's going to be who can sit the best trip. I like the Dicey Mochara draws inside. 8-1's a nice price. And then again, Leonard Powell, very sneaky, can hit at a good clip, and is definitely warming up, and all the horses from his barn are firing well right now.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, he's 14 for 27, over 50% in the money, 22% on top. So Leonard Powell, who's normally, in that 15% type trainer, is definitely heating up here at Del Mar. So completely agree with you there. 7-6-1 for me, 1-6-7 for Charlie. Noah's going 5-6-1. Ryan's going 7-6-2. Guys, this is the late pick 3 now we're heading into, and this is starting with the Green Flash handicap, grade 3, going a flat 5 on the Del Mar turf course, which is everybody's favorite race. We're back to turf sprints, ladies and gentlemen, but it's not a small field at all. It's, of course, as you get the 12-horse field going a flat 5 with the morning line favorite to the outside, the West Coast mainstay Motorious Free Sue for D'Amato at 7-2. A second choice right to his inside, the mare Connie Swingle, Kyle Frey D'Amato, off of the 2-year layoff last time and absolutely blew the doors off that field, running fantastic at 9-2. And your third choice is actually to the outside, Turn on the Jets for Kimura and D'Amato at 5-1 in the 12 hole. And I'll bring up our picks right now, and you'll see we're actually all over the board, as we probably should be, in a very wide open turf sprint. I'm going with the number 8, None Hudson, going back to the well. If you guys watched our Saratoga shows, Charlie's going with the number 9, Connie Swingle. Noah's going with Off the Wall, your third D'Amato, or your fourth D'Amato, Unconquerable Keen at 8-1. And Ryan's going with a 15-1 shot on top, the number 3, Sassy Nature, the California bred, which means, Ryan, you get to go first, my friend. We never talk anyone off of 15-1 shots, especially not if I have the horse in second. So what'd you like most about the number 3, Sassy Nature?
Yeah, I get it. Last time out, walked the dog on the front end going 5 furlongs. Not going to get exactly that right now. However, or in this spot, but Luis Mendez, great with sprinters. I liked how he looked last time. He clearly loves the Del Mar trip, being 2 wins out of 3 starts. at the flat 5. That's a good sign for me. He's run well turf sprinting for Louis Mendez in the past. Obviously, it's going to be he's going to send out, and it's going to be a come and catch me type of trip. Speed has been good going the 5 all meet. There's only been a couple that have really closed from well off of it. Obviously, he's going to meet a lot tougher in here. It's going to be a big test. You can see his lead was kind of diminishing towards the end there. But I mean, I think, second off the bench, again, loving this flat 5 trip. I think he's in with a real shot. 15-1. I don't love that Fresu hops off, but Cedillo's been riding pretty good on the turf this meet. So I feel confident that he's going to be able to work out a decent trip. And I think you're going to get better than 15-1. So I'll make sure to key him underneath as well as my horizontal plays. But I definitely think he's in with a shot here.
I completely agree with you on this horse. And actually, one thing that the boss took out is Ryan must take a drink. He called the female a he, as we do on this show a lot. And Ryan takes a drink for everyone else out there. Take a drink as well. But I completely agree with you. And actually, you said Speed's been doing really well at the flat 5. And this is a race that Timeform doesn't even have fast. And they have the 3 on a pretty wide lead. The one fast buck is the other one that's probably going to go out to the lead. And you say walk the dog last time. And obviously, everything's faster on the West Coast out there, especially these turf sprints. But, I mean, she went 44-2 last time to the half mile. Granted, completely by herself on the front end, and the other thing that I like is I love Abel Cedillo on the lead. That's the one, like, Abel Cedillo is a hard person to trust for me coming from a horse coming from the back. But when he gets out to the lead, he rode Smokin' Jay earlier in the year and got him. He's never been on the lead before at all. Got him straight to the lead and never looked back in that race. That's my exact angle for Sassy Nature here. If he can get out there, on a length lead, I don't see why he can't at least catch a piece at a pretty nice double-digit odds, if not take them all the way, especially off that last race. And I talked about it earlier how, it's a 1-number horse. Sassy Nature has ran these numbers before. She almost won a race at Keeneland last fall, running a 90 buyer with Pratt aboard, just losing by a neck to Bling, who's a fantastic turf sprinter in her own right. So I really like Sassy Nature, and the fact that I saw 15-1 on this horse was a little bit shocking to me, especially with the way that the meet's been playing. So I completely agree with you on Sassy Nature. This is one of those underneath type plays, and as Howard pointed out earlier, for Pacific Classic Day, rails are down. They're down to 0. So if this horse gets out to the lead and on the inside, this could definitely be a play at 15-1. So I don't disagree with you by any means, Ryan. So we'll go to Noah next. Unconquerable Keen. We're laughing at Jim Pilars as we normally do in the chat. Either way, Noah, I'll let you go next, Charlie. Then we'll go to you because you have a horse that a lot of us have in there. Unconquerable Keen is a horse that's going to be more forwardly placed in this race for D'Amato. Again, the other D'Amato. What'd you like most about Unconquerable Keen?
Yeah, I think there has to be a pretty decent amount of in here, but I think you have to be, somewhat intact with the field. I don't think you can come from, dead last or three quarters of the field. Yeah. And I just love the trip that I think Unconquerable Keen's going to sit. There's no way that he can be as bad as he was last time. I mean, he was 3-2. He faced similar. He actually faced Sassy Nature and Daniel's Magic and a couple others that are back in this race. But I'm just keying in on those last. Sorry, not the last one. But 2 and 3 back. He's got a spectacular record at Del Mar, 2 for 5 on the win end, and he's never run out of the money. And I'm just going to trust D'Amato in a situation like this. And I believe Hector Berrios probably had the choice to either go with the 7 or the 12, turn on the Jets. And I do like the fact that he stays here. So I'm gonna trust. I'm gonna put my hands in Phil D'Amato, and I think he'll probably get close to 10-1 because this is a hell of a race.
Yeah, no matter what. Yeah. I mean, you're definitely getting at least middling, if not fully that 8-1 or higher. So I like the fact that Unconquerable Keen's going to be at least a little more in touch than a lot of these other horses that we're going to touch on now between None Hudson and Connie Swingle. But like I said, going to have to step up off that last race. I agree. I mean, he was on, uncharacteristically bad in that race. Maybe this horse doesn't. I mean, he's stalked in the past, but maybe that's just not what he wants to do. He wants to go for the lead, which maybe, does envelop a little bit of, our pick and sassy nature, Ryan. But either way, Charlie, I'll let you go next. Connie Swingle is the horse that, like I mentioned, came off that 2-year layoff from October of 22 to July of 24 and absolutely just destroyed that field at almost 5-1 and 9-2. But this is one where she hasn't really faced this type of competition, although, like I said, she ran damn good last time.
Yeah, I mean, and look, she still ran against respectable horses, right? I mean, ran against Stay and Scam and Album Drive. And I remember this race very well because you and I had covered it. And we basically just said very clearly, this is between Album Drive and Stay and Scam. Connie Swingle's a decent horse, but has been off for 2 years. We need to see it to believe it. And the horse is going to definitely need one. That's what you and I were making abundantly clear. It was a 2-horse race and this one needed one. And then we both got embarrassed and this horse dominated. And what I kind of like is, we talked about it, speed favor and it's a sprint. It's kind of tough to, especially when it's, 5 flat, not 5.5, but 5 flat, to try to, rally from the back. But this is one that, last time was able to stay, touch and go within a couple lengths and then just ran on by. And I don't see why, I think Timeform nailed it perfectly. I think, the 9 and 8 will probably sit right near each other and both kind of sit a couple lengths off the lead and then try to go by. And I was kind of, I'm happy I didn't because I know the Wesley Ward bicycle would have killed me. I was very back and forth between this one and No Nay Hudson for my top choice because I think they kind of have a similar running style. Ultimately landed on this one for 2 reasons. One was just a little concern with the works personally for No Nay Hudson. I mean, I know it's not like a Wesley Firster, so you're expecting the horse to fly, but I just thought it was a little slower than my liking. And then also I just talked to, my uncle, and he was asking me about if I was asking about his horses at Kentucky Downs, because that's who he won't stop talking about. And he said he hasn't heard a word about any horses that he's sending elsewhere. So made me a little nervous that, he hasn't heard anything about if this horse is looking good or ready for this spot. So put the 9 on top, but I still think No Nay Hudson has enough class to be solid here too.
Yeah, the thing, I agree with Connie Swingle. I mean, that last race is just too good to ignore, I think, in my opinion. Just also with the pace of the race might be better to be at least a little bit forwardly placed, especially recently on the Del Mar turf going this flat 5, as Ryan pointed out earlier. You want to be closer to the lead. So Connie Swingle is definitely that one, but man, I'm going back, man. I No Nay Hudson at 6-1 in this race for what he's done in the past just makes so much sense. I loved him last time. For those that watched our show and bought the Saratoga Power Picks, this was my play of the day last time with Pratt aboard. Was, I believe, 5-1 on the morning line, got bet down to 7-2. Just a little too far back, I think, than this horse. Maybe a little bit slow off the blocks in 2024. But now, second off the layoff, Howard pointed out in the chat, I completely agree with you, Howard. The only reason that I think Wesley ships this horse out here instead of Keeneland, per se, and I might ship him back to Keeneland, but this has to be a test that if he can run at Del Mar on the Breeders' Cup turf, it has to be. It has to be a test run. Howard says, I really do like your pick. Has to be a test run. The only reason Ward would ship for this, I completely agree with you. I think, there might be, as I said, not enough pace, but at least a little bit more than what it deceives on time form. He should sit right off. He should just sit in that first flight, second flight, and be able to get first run with the rails down. I like closers a little bit more than what's been going on with the rails out at Del Mar. I think No Nay Hudson at 6-1 is one of my plays of the day. And I'm going back to the well, might eat my words. And at a 5 furlong turf sprint, it's definitely happened before and will not be the last time. But No Nay Hudson, especially with the price, is definitely going to be a play for me on Saturday, second off the layoff. Guys, we'll talk about the last horse we'll talk about, then we'll move on to the last is Motorious. Noah, you have this horse in second. The thing that you said to me was, if this horse does not finish in the money, they have to reevaluate this horse. Maybe he's just not as good as he was last year, but he does love the flat 5 at Del Mar, going 2 for 2 on the surface here.
Yeah, I think if you're playing a horizontal sequence, he's got to be on the ticket. But there's no way that I would bet him, to win. He's 7-2 on the line. He'll probably be. You'll probably get 3-1 just because it's a tough race. But I think you have to demand a decent price on anybody, which is why I think your 8 is intriguing as well at 5 or 6-1 most likely. But if you go to his Del Mar races, just kind of stick out like a sore thumb, especially that last one in the Green Flash last year, where he was off for a little while, and he wasn't really bet like he was going to run big, but then he fired that huge effort. And unfortunately hasn't really come back to that. But I mean, you can just look at the fields that he's been facing. No balls, big invasion. Cogburn, the best turf sprinter in the country. And then the last race is where you kind of choose sides, whether, that was just the case of, that wasn't himself, or maybe it's time to kind of hang it up. So one to use, definitely not someone that I would bet to win.
Yeah, and you and I loved him last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, I believe, if I remember correctly. And he went off favorite at that day, which I couldn't believe. I don't think you could either. But yeah, look, this is a horse that maybe is just not as good as he was. He's 6 now. He's been running in that last allowance for sure. I think if he was the same horse, he should have won. He loves down the hill, so that 6 furlongs should have been any issue for him, and just really didn't have the closing kick that last year's Motorius had. So that's going to be the one thing for me with Motorius, but we'll see. I just don't like, especially horses that are going to be flying from he flies from much farther back than all the horses we talked about, like Unconquerable Keen, None Hudson, Connie Swingle. These types of horses that are going to have these stalking trips, I think, are going to fare a little bit better than Motorius will. But again, Motorius easily has the talent. It's just a matter of, can he put it together this year going into the Breeders' Cup. So we'll see for this. But guys, we'll keep moving on, because obviously the next race we have to talk about is the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. And spoiler alert, with the Philly being 9-5, we're going to play the same game, guys. We're going to see how many people have Adair Manor on top. But I'm going 8-3-9 in the Green Flash. Charlie's going 9-8-11. Noah's going 7-10-8, and Ryan's going 3-9-8. Also, the boss he said, if Sassy Nature finishes in the money, I get a bonus. So honestly, let's hope no one goes to the lead and Sassy Nature wins for fun. So maybe we'll share it with all the boys on the screen. We'll see how much the bonus actually is, if that even. Although Matt Miller's actually writing it down, so maybe I actually will get a bonus if Sassy Nature gets in the money. But either way, guys, we're moving on to the Pacific Classic. And of course, before we move on to the future of today's card, I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you to Ryan for coming on. Been fantastic so far. Obviously, has his own podcast. We'll talk about it, where you guys can find him at the end of the show as well. But he's the intern at Del Mar. He's a Gallop. It's called the Gallop Out on YouTube, and of course in his banner as well, it's 20 links clear on X and or Twitter. And if you guys haven't followed him on X, yeah, he posted how many pick fives you win last week, Ryan? Like 3, 4?
I think 3. Yeah, I think 3.
It's not, more pick fives than I've hit in my lifetime. Granted, I don't play them very often at all, but that's just the point there, man. You're, like I say, you're hot right now. And going back to your home track at Del Mar, obviously a lot of those you hit at Saratoga too. So not even where you're based out of. So people aren't following you. They're missing out for sure. But again, I'll give you some more time to talk about at the end of the show where you're from, where people can find you. But please, if you haven't already, please go down below the video player and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the show. Again, it shows us that you guys are enjoying the content and enjoy these West Coast type of shows. Also, it pushes these videos out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself here to the HHH Racing Podcast. So thank you guys for doing that if you choose to do so. But guys, we'll move on to the Pacific Classic, and we will see how many people have the Philly on top. And I'll scroll down to it right now. It's a field of 9 for the $1 million Grade 1 Pacific Classic presented by FanDuel Racing. The Philly Adair, or the mare Adair Manor at 9-5 in the 7-hole. Juan Hernandez for Bob Baffert. Second choice is number 3, Dr. Venkman, off that beautiful last effort in the San Diego. Frisu and Mark Glatt. Third choice is all the way to the inside. Number 1, Il Maricolo for Mike Smith and Antonio Sano shipping out here. So, guys, we'll play the game real quick, and then we'll move on to see our picks. How many people do you think have the Philly on top? Is it 0, 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of us have this Philly on top? I'll give some chance to the chat to bring in their answers here, but there might not even be any of us that take this Philly on top at 9-5, but we'll see. Put your answers in the chat real quick. Racing Downwind says 1. The boss says 2 of us are going with Adair Manor on top. Paul Conlon also says 2. Tom Espinoza says 2 as well. And I'll keep going. I'll keep going here to see if anyone else puts in the chat. But either way, we'll go with it. And just one of us is going with Adair Manor on top, and that is Charlie going with 9-5. The 9-5 Adair Manor on top. Ryan, my friend, that is what we know as based over here. It is Dr. Venkman on top at 5-2. Noah, you are the one going off the wall in this race with a little bit of a long shot. Katona for Tiago Pereira and Doug O'Neill at 8-1. I'll let Charlie go first, talk about Adair Manor, and then I'll let you go, Noah, as well, talking about long shot Katona. But Charlie, look, she's done absolutely nothing wrong in her, and especially in the late races of her career. Absolutely blew the doors off them in the Clement El Hirsch. Now comes into this spot, which is obviously, it's not the best group of 3-year-olds definitely we've ever seen here on the West Coast, but she has the numbers that fit. I mean, she's running hundreds, high 90s. It fits in this spot, so she definitely has a chance.
Yeah, I thought she fit well, and quite honestly, last time out, I tried to beat her, and she had every chance to lose. That's a replay I'd encourage the viewers to watch if you haven't already. Obviously, when you see 60 cents on the dollar, you expect her to win, but ran against Celia. I don't know how to pronounce the damn horse's name, but a horse that I'm always on and love, and have I think had in the last 3 or 4 races that horse has run, and it's been the horse. So I tried to beat this one with that one. I played a straight exacta. And I'll be honest, off the turn, I thought I had it. I really did. And then, she proved me wrong. And as you touched on, has the figures, it's 10 wins out of 18 lifetime, 5 seconds. And again, really for a horse that typically has always looked a winner, I thought did not look a winner at all. I had the 3-2 straight exacta. I thought it was over. I thought I was safe for home. Didn't work out at all. I think part of the question is obviously going to be, the distance. Stretching out from, running a mile 16th and a mile and an eighth to now a mile and a fourth. But I think she can handle it. I think she'll work out a nice trip, and it'll be forwardly placed, but I don't think needs the lead by any means. It can, as long as within, touch and go. And as you also touched on, obviously, now taking on a field like this could be tough, but I also think, honestly, look, I don't love the 9-5 price vertically. Wouldn't want those odds at all. But as you touched on, this is not the strongest field, in my opinion, by any means. And as someone who, if the viewers have been paying attention, has been playing against the chalk in this whole sequence so far, this was the race I finally gave in and went with a favorite.
Yeah, and Racing Downwind puts in that Bob said she rebounded really well off the Clement El Hirsch and has been training super. So off, taking in maybe the Grizzly Bears shoes, why not try and run her in this race? That's definitely worth a lot more money than what she'd be running in otherwise. Look, she completely fits. Like, numbers-wise, this is just a different ask. Plus, and Charlie noted the distance. She has shown, she hasn't shown anything that would say the 1.25 miles might be a problem by any means out of Uncle Mo. So makes a ton of sense. But 9-5 is definitely way too short. And she might even be lower than that come post time. And that's something I don't want to personally touch vertically. Charlie, I know you said you didn't either, but that's the one thing that definitely sways me away from Adair Manor. Ryan, we'll touch on our top pick in 1 second, but no, I want to talk to you first because 8-1 morning line, Katona ran very well in the San Diego last time behind Dr. Venkman. Just couldn't get past. Dr. Venkman ran a very, very good race in that one. But again, high 90s, low hundreds. That's exactly, I think, what you're going to need to win this race. This horse has done it, and you're getting a really good price.
Yeah, I think you guys need to reevaluate because I like Katona a lot. I know Ryan's got him in there, which I appreciate that, Ryan. But for those of you who, most people probably don't know this, but Katona was actually entered in this race last year and scratched out. And clearly there was some kind of anatomical issue since then because he'd been off for over a year. And I think Doug O'Neill probably had some things in mind, but was just kind of pointing to the spot. So then they got the prep in the San Diego, and I think if you watch that race carefully, it looked like a horse that needed the race. He was kind of climbing on the far turn, but then really got going and couldn't quite get to Dr. Venkman, but he was kind of goofy. He didn't change leads until really late. This is going to be second time off the bench. And I'm a big fan of Tiago Pereira. I really hope he gets it done because he's he's somebody that I think is really overlooked in the California circuit.
I don't disagree with you. Obviously 4 for 65 this year, but definitely wins it a higher percentage over at Santa Anita. This is one, no, I don't disagree with you. It's just a matter of, I don't know if that last race is exactly what, I think this horse is better sitting a little bit farther back. I don't hate the 1.25 miles for this horse. And obviously these connections don't either. Was coming late in the San Diego, just couldn't get to Dr. Venkman, who had a really good trip, although dueled a lot in the middle of the race with the heavy favorite that day in Arabian Night. And Arabian Night just came out completely empty and is now retired. So that's, you could say retired by Dr. Venkman, but either way, last race was very good. 20-1, definitely going to be a little bit lower in this spot, but definitely not going to be one of the near favorites. The one of the near favorites that we'll talk about is who you're going to call is Dr. Venkman. Ryan, me and you going together here. This is a horse that was very good sprinting early in the year, just couldn't seem to get the full kick down at the end of the year and then off the bench, then stretches out to 1 mile and 16th. I'll be honest, I was a little bit dubious of this horse going 1 mile and 16th last time, but passed that test with absolute flying colors. Like I said, 46-4, 111 flat. It's not necessarily blazing fast, but that's not slow by any means. Going 1 mile and 16th, now going 1.25 miles, but should get a very nice trip in this race as well.
Yeah, definitely. I like you. It sounds like you also faded him last time with the first stretch around 2 turns. I also did. I was on him for the 7 furlong triple bend. Obviously came up short to a good horse and Happy Jack. But yeah, past that 2-turn test with flying colors, obviously had a Ghost Zapper. They are going to run forever. So yeah, I like Dr. Venkman here. I think he's in a good spot. Mark Glad has had a really good meet. Freysu, the top rider, gets the call. And I think, just touching on number 7, obviously that's a great horse in Adair Manor. She's really talented. I just don't really know what she beat last time. Like Charlie, I'm a big fan of Scylla. Still not positive that's how you pronounce that name, but I'll say Scylla.
That's how that it usually gets thrown to me, and I'm the one that looks like an idiot because I say the horse's name wrong. But I think you are right with Scylla.
Love that horse. Obviously, the breeding speaks for itself, but not quite sure what she beat in that spot, but she did beat it really well. Had a lot of trouble. The other jockeys in that race did a really good job of giving her, a very hard time to win, and she won pretty much for fun towards the end of that. However, Dr. Venkman, as you said, beat Arabian Night into retirement. That is a good horse. I believe came in second in the Haskell last year. So obviously a talented horse, passed the 2-turn test with flying colors. And I just think this spot makes a lot of sense for him, stretching out a little more. Seemed to kind of really get to running once they kind of came down the stretch and obviously, powered home. So I think that was a good look. I think going over third off the layoff can do another progression from the buyer. And I think, again, the low 100s is what it's going to take to win this race. And I think Dr. Venkman's definitely capable of that.
I completely agree with you. I couldn't have said it better myself. I like that this horse is a little bit lighter raced, only 5 starts. Now 3rd off the bench from his 3-year-old year and has only, gotten better. First off the layoff, maybe 7 furlongs, a little bit farther back, not necessarily what this horse wants to do. Also, Happy Jack destroyed that field that day. Last time in the San Diego, I thought he ran absolutely sensational. Last time out, wrapped up by the wire, and now he comes into this spot. This only seems like the nice progression into this race for Dr. Venkman. And if he gets the trip I think he's going to be pretty tough come post time. Obviously, you do as well. You'll see the number 6, Full Serrano, is going to be out to the lead here, they say, but they still call it a fast pace, even though he's alone. Il Miracolo is a horse that some of us have underneath. I have in second. Charlie has in third. I think this is a horse that's going to sit a really nice trip just on the inside. He's going to get a jump on other horses, but they have Il Miracolo. Then you see Dr. Venkman and Adair Manor right here, right next to each other. Then you go back to Reincarnate and Katona. But anyway, I just think Dr. Venkman sits a perfect trip in this spot. Basically, like the trip he got in the Perryville, just going 2 turns, basically running that 1.25 miles. Going to sit in that first flight to the inside of Adair Manor. And if he gets that inside trip, which has been very, very good at Del Mar, I think Dr. Venkman has a very, very good shot to win this race in his 6th career start. The Il Miracolo, Charlie, is a horse that we have underneath. We'll touch on real quick. Then we'll move. Then we'll move and talk about one other horse. Then we'll move on to the last race. But makes a ton of sense. Ran last time at Monmouth against Noah's favorite horse, Subsanador. Got him to win that time in a stalking trip.
He actually won? Oh my God.
I know, it's crazy, huh? Not at 20-1 though. It was favored at 7-5. But either way, ran a great race that day. Maybe just not enough. Has run good at 1 1/8. So, and even was put into the Belmont, at 1.5 miles. So this horse has always been thought for longer distances. And I think just based on trip alone on the inside, I think this horse might have a chance to sneak in the money here.
Yeah, and I just think El Miracolo is one of those horses that just always flies under the radar. You look at who this horse has run against, and really he's run against just about everyone. And because of that, instead of getting the respect of running against them, it's kind of just always like, oh yeah, he too was in that race. But quietly, honestly, if you look throughout of his race form, besides obviously, the Pegasus, consistently has been running in the top 3, as you touched on. And you look, 14 out of 21 starts, 2/3 of the time, this horse is somewhere in the money. I just think, like you touched on, I don't think, because a lot of these others have maybe been going a little further, I think he can show a little more speed, and kind of is one that already naturally likes to be right around there. And I agree with you. I think can save ground on the trail. Obviously, being gun runner with the sire, I think can handle this dirt distance. And I'm happy you brought that up as well, because I was going to say, it seems like this is one they've been trying to find a spot to give that chance to try this distance out. And honestly, I think you'll get every bit of that 5-1. I think you'll get more. I think a lot of people, this is a one being shipped in, but with Antonio Sano, for me, with Gulfstream being my adopted home track, I think he's, as Noah's been touching on with some jockeys being underrated in Cali, I think Antonio Sano's a Florida trainer that sort of gets underrated and overlooked. And because of that, I think this one will honestly be way more than 5-1. I think you'll be looking at 7-8-1, but is one that, again, could save the ground before league place. And I would love to try to get in as a nice price underneath, especially if I want to play something under a Door Manor and I don't want that 9-5 odds. And then I'll briefly touch on the 4 Reincarnated Wyvern second. I think this is one we always touch on, that is just like the Baffert that gets bet but can't get the job done. But at the same time, we also always talk about, similar to El Miracolo, is one that, always somehow finds a way to be in the money. Again, one that's 11 for 15 in the money. So I just threw this one in because another one where if I can get decent odds and I think he can run a decent enough race to finish in the money would be a nice price to get. And again, maybe because of his expectations, he's disappointing, but he tends to always run a decent effort.
Yeah, we talked about it. I didn't see him running, second to Mr. Fisk, 2 back in the Gold Cup. And then look, if it's for me, the last race was the nail and coffin for me on Reincarnated. If he can't win that race, just laying off a length 2.5 at 1-5, 2-5, it's just not for me. You are right though, Charlie. It's one that always seems to be under the radar a little bit and sneak in the money somewhere, but does always get bet for Baffert. And he'll get bet again. Just doesn't seem to necessarily fire his best winning effort, but definitely one that might be included underneath. And the last horse I want to talk about real quick is one that the boss brought up. He said full Serrano, and he said don't sleep. Sadler and Horonis know how to win this race. Was very impressive last time. Has gone the distance on the turf in Argentina, as you can see with these 3 races here, and has won at this distance. So dead send for Raylu, most likely going to get the lead and maybe one to not look back. 12-1 is definitely good, and I agree with you on that last race. Just this is a very tough ask, I think, second time out for full Serrano. But look, if he gets loose, he could definitely win. I'm not saying he can't, but it definitely would be a surprise to me if he does win. But Raylu hops aboard, as you mentioned, Horonis, John Sadler. Look, they're not shy of the winner's circle, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But definitely would be it's a pretty tough ask second time out, I guess, in the States is all I'm trying to say. I'm going 3-1-7. Charlie's going 7-4-1. Noah's going 5-3-7, and Ryan's going 3-7-5. Guys, moving into the last race on the card. And again, thank you guys all so much for joining the show. It is the Del Mar Mile, a grade 2, going, of course, a mile on the turf for a field of 10 with a pretty decent morning line favorite in the number 3, Du Jour for Juan Hernandez and Bob Baffert at 8-5. Second choice to the outside, the number 9, First Piece for Mike Smith and Mark Glatt. Third choice being just to his inside, with the number 8, Conclude for Hector Barrios and Phil D'Amato, and I'll switch over the picks right now. And 3 of us are going with the aforementioned Du Jour. Noah is going with the horse that I think is a little interesting underneath, but he has him on top, the number 8, Conclude, and that's where we'll start, and then we'll move into Ryan with Du Jour. But Noah, odd man out, so that means, of course, you're up first. What'd you like most with the number 8, Conclude?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the instructions were with Conclude.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I bet you they definitely weren't to be 15 lengths back. I mean, this in his previous races, he had never been more than a length or 2 back.
Yep.
And this was kind of a buzz horse. There's a radio show I listened to. It's kind of in the LA area. And they had Phil D'Amato on and basically said he was working like a monster. And ever since then, he's been working fine, but he's worked primarily on the turf. So I have to believe that that was to get him ready for this spot. Hector and D'Amato, of course, deadly here. And I have a feeling Hector is going to be a lot closer than he was last time. And it's hard to trust Du Jour right now because you can make the excuse that, he doesn't love the 1.1 miles. But he was kind of disappointing in the Shoemaker. And I have a feeling he's probably going to be 4 to 5 or even money. And I don't want any part of that.
I get it completely, but I do agree with you with Conclude. I think he's a little interesting and still ran a 93, being 15 lengths back last time, which is not what this horse wants to do at all. And if he's going to go pretty close to the lead with a horse like First Piece, who I think actually might have a little bit of an advantage in this race from a pace standpoint, I think Conclude makes a whole ton of sense on the front end. But the point that you pointed out with Du Jour, I agree. I just think he's a lot better in the mile. I also don't know if he was very far back in the Shoemaker mile. And if you're trying to catch, that's why I love Johannes that day, was the fact that he was going to get a jump on a horse like Du Jour. And we talk about it all the time, right? How, in that last race in the Shoemaker mile, you see he's closing and just doesn't get there to a horse like Johannes, then comes back at 1.1 miles. People are going to hammer him like, oh, he just didn't have enough room. He's going to get that extra mile. He's going to get that extra 1/8 of a mile and blow right by. And obviously that's not the case. With a colder pace that time, 1:12 and 4 to the 3/4 at 1.1 miles, that, especially at Del Mar, is definitely not fast. And for Du Jour, especially a horse that doesn't like going longer than a mile, I think that definitely put him a little bit up against it, Ryan. But I think coming back to the mile should sit at least a little bit closer, and maybe in a field where everyone's maybe not just as classy as he is. I think he's, in a spot where he has a spot, a little to do some damage, albeit at a low price.
Yeah, this horse loves the mile trip. That was my play here, was the cut back to a mile. This is where this horse is the sharpest. And I told you, I think before we started recording, this horse has beat me so many times that I'm not going to let him beat me here at a mile. I know he loves this trip. I know he loves Del Mar. He drew really well with the 3-hole. He's going to be able to save ground with Juan aboard. He's going to be able to make that run. He's not going to be terribly far off of it. I know speed's been good, but I think he's going to be able to sit a pretty decent trip here. I think he's going to be able to outkick everybody. He doesn't meet any monsters. He doesn't meet Johannes. Doesn't Master of the Seas 4 back is a gorilla among horses. So I have a fair amount of confidence this is the time for Du Jour. Again, it beat me plenty of times. I think this one fits up nice for him, or sets up nice for him. Second off this little layoff, should fire fresh here. So hoping to get him home.
I agree with you completely. And you mentioned, he's 3 for 6 in his last 6, but he's lost to Johannes twice and then Master of the Seas. So keeping that type of company, I just think he might just be a little more classy, Charlie, than the rest of them, kind of like I mentioned. Anything actually you want to add on Du Jour before we go into underneath horses?
No, I think you guys honestly nailed it. And for me, this is a race where, we'll get into the, best bets later. And while I do think it is kind of a 2-horse race, this is the one I would definitely lean to. And I wouldn't try to, play the 3 and 9 together for odds. But to me, I think this is a great race opportunity where if you feel strong about one or the other, or, if you're like Noah and you want to just go completely off the rails, this is a great race to try to, either take a stand with a price or find a nice price. Like for me personally with the 7th, you could play underneath one of these two. But yeah, I think Du Jour's just been running against monsters. I think, you and I, Kyle, thought Johannes was interesting. We just didn't realize how interesting the horse turned out to be.
Yeah.
And I think, again, he's been running against monsters, beat Easter, who's a nice horse on the West. Fantastic again is a nice Wesley Ward who has really taken to the distance. and I think gets a much more reasonable field. And not that the field's weak, but I think, as Ryan said, that, this seems like the time for him to get it done.
I don't disagree with you by any means. The horse will go underneath here to the number 9 First Piece, Ryan, who you have in second. All of us have somewhere in the money. Ran absolutely fantastic last time in the Wicker, going the mile here at Del Mar. Hadn't really stretched out to that. Ran a mile in the Frank Kilrow. That was a very tough ask. Going against Du Jour, Easter, and others. It has been running, at that 6, going 6.5. I just think it might be a little too short for him now coming back to that mile off that monster effort. I think he's prime, especially with the type of trip I see him getting in this race.
He should sit a good trip, based on how he likes to run and his current form. Something that does worry me and why I couldn't pick him on top was because of the jockey. I'm worried that we're going to be too wide. I'm worried that we're going to lose too much ground. Obviously, the 9 hole doesn't help in that scenario. So that was just kind of my reservation against picking him on top. But obviously, the figures fit here. He does need to take a step up. The only time really against the graded stakes company in the Daytona, he finished a good second by a half length. That was going down the hill. And then again, you mentioned in the Frank Kilrow, face tougher, one of them being Du Jour, who he faces in here. So I think he's a good horse. He's going to be good underneath. I just couldn't quite see him finishing up on top from that post draw compared to, Du Jour drawing inside of him. But I mean, good horse.
Yeah, I agree with you. Noah, you have this horse in third, the only one to have him outside of second. Again, makes a ton of sense. But see, I'm not the only one. The old he didn't say his name, but the old Mike Smith on the turf angle. I know what Ryan was going for there. Noah.
Yeah, it's funny because I liked you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All good.
Yeah, I liked First Piece quite a bit last time. He got the absolute perfect trip. It was absolutely insane. And First Piece has obviously faced a couple others in here, like the horse that I like, and then Almendaris, who's also in the race, who's actually the favorite, who I'm still looking for an excuse for in that race because he was absolutely awful. I am a little bit concerned, as Ryan is, with the post. If you guys have been paying attention to Del Mar, these mile races, you do not want to be 8 posts and out. But I think there's a potential where if he breaks, he can kind of tuck in pretty easily, and then you kind of take that wide post out of the equation. And even though he won at a mile last time, just because he got such a perfect trip, I still think he's a little bit better around one turn. And I think he's probably going to be the clear second choice. Someone to use underneath. Rancho de Mescal they're going to get their horses in the money and they're going to run for sure. But certainly one to use. Not much else to say.
I agree with you completely. Exalted's a horse that maybe just isn't as good this year as he has been in the past. Obviously running 98s last time. Second in the Del Mar mile last year to Du Jour. Just hasn't been the same horse out this year. And especially as they noted, you don't want to be outside in these posts, and drawing the 10 is kind of the death sentence for that horse. Almendaris, as Noah touched on, that last race was favored and was terrible. Just never came on at all in that race. Maybe he'll run better here. Frisu hops back aboard for D'Amato. Also is cross-entered into – actually, did he run today? Probably not.
No, he's scratched. He's running on Saturday.
There you go. So that's a good for Almendaris. And then the only horse we didn't talk about, Ryan, is a horse you have underneath, Astronomer. Any real quick thoughts? Then we'll move into best bets.
Yeah. First thing, I realized I definitely sent my picks in wrong. I was supposed to be 3-1-9 here. I wrote a little swap arrow and just overlooked that early this morning. My play here with the 1 over the 9 was the post draws compared to last out. First Piece was drawn 4. This horse was drawn 11, Astronomer. This time it's kind of flipped where First Piece has the 9, Astronomer has the 1 hole. So I think Astronomer is going to be able to save a lot of ground. Going to run a similar trip to Du Jour. Don't know that this horse is as classy as Du Jour, but should get a decent run. Simon Callahan hasn't had the greatest meet, but hasn't had a whole lot of runners. 4 in the money is not terrible out of 11 starters. Means, they're placed relatively well. So that gives me enough confidence. Air Force Blue is a pretty good turf sire. And 20-1, I like this horse underneath. 11% with the turf routers there. Thanks for pulling that up. Likes the Del Mar trip. three wins out of 8 starts, 2 seconds, going the mile distance, and then 2 wins and 6 trips at Del Mar. So enjoys the distance. Kimura's ridden really well this meet, especially on turf. He's coming with some really good prices. I don't think he's getting enough respect from coming in from Woodbine, where he is one of their top riders.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that. The 98 last out, yes, it favored closers, but I still think that he ran a really good race. I believe he blew up the board a little while back, a couple of years ago now, 2021, actually, as it looks like, in the gold mile at 30-1. But I like that horse. I think you could sit a good trip and finish underneath in the money there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I don't disagree with you. Look, 20-1, especially a horse like you noted about the post position last time, kind of switched now with first piece. So maybe that could be an angle to try and get a double-digit horse in the money. I'm going 398. Charlie's going 397. Noah's going 839. Ryan's going 319. Guys, switching over to best bets. Ryan, I'll let you go first, of course. And you've gotten a lot of compliments in the chat. So again, thank you so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. Jim Pilar is one of our oldest, not oldest by age, Jim, oldest by viewership.
You're done.
Viewership.
Well, he deserves it. He's been giving me shit.
One of the original viewers of the podcast said just followed on X and followed Ryan on X. Very impressive with his appearance tonight. Katie also followed it up with he's very good. So Ryan, you're getting a lot of love. So again, thanks so much for joining.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Go to your best bets here. And you said you're a guy that plays a lot of pick fives, but you give us your best bets and they're the double and a win bet. So I do respect it, man. I love to welcome you to the double club. Ryan's best bets of the card are race number 9, a double 3-8 into Dr. Venkman. And that's from the Green Flash. That is the horses that I also like, Sassy Nature and No Nay Hudson, and a win bet on Dr. Venkman. I think I know the horse that you're trying to key in around, Ryan.
Yeah, no surprise. It is Dr. Venkman. That's going to be my horse of the day. That's my play. That's going to be my single in the late tickets. It's going to be pretty much what I build my day around. No pick 5 as my best bet, Matt. No, I wanted to keep it a little simpler, mainly because this could pay a decent amount, even in the double, even in the straight win bet. I think Adair Manor is going to get hammered. I'm hoping for 5-2 on Dr. Venkman, maybe 2-1. I don't know that I'll take much lower than that. I'm not quite sure how the tote board's going to play there, but Sassy Nature and No Nay Hudson, that's kind of playing either end of the spectrum with the speed and then with the closing kick or the closing type in there. And then again, going into Dr. Venkman, that is what I'm going to kind of center my day around. And I hope if Sassy Nature wins, we split that bonus if Howard gives it to you.
That's what I'm talking about. And then when Dr. Venkman wins the Pacific Classic, then we're going to be really in the biz, as the kids say. So Ryan, good luck with your best bets. Noah, going to you next. 2 win bets right in a row, maybe pair it with a double as well. Race number 10, a win in the number 5, Katona is 8-1, and a win in number 8 concluding the 11th race at 6-1. So 2 pretty nice, maybe spot plays for you.
People will have to people will have to sign up for those. But yeah, going into the spot plays, Katona, I understand there are some question marks, but I think based off of time form numbers and just instinct, I think he's primed for probably the best effort of his career. Is that good enough to get the job done either against Dr. Venkman or Adair Manor? I'm not quite sure, but I still think he's going to run a big effort, and you're going to get a fair price on him. And then in the last, I'm going to go with Conclude. I think he's probably going to be ridden to much better instruction this time, probably a little closer to the lead. It doesn't look like there's a ton of pace in there, so I think Hector's gonna break and probably find himself close to the lead there. And I think I'll probably get a decent price there too. And I will play a double, Matt. So there you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's gonna come in. I'm surprised he hasn't said it already, but there you go. Good luck, obviously, Noah, with those 2 horses. Conclude a little bit, and Katona could obviously be one that I'm just overlooking. So good luck there. Charlie, going to you next. Win race number 4, a win on the number 7, Nothing Like You at 9-2, who we talked about is interesting from a pace scenario angle. And race 11, going with trying to key to Dare Manor, maybe underneath at unless you sent me a wrong at a low price, and trying to get Dr. Venkman. Or no, sorry, that's race 10. Jesus. Race 11, excuse me, trying to key the number 7 flashiest underneath. Is that correct? And then trying to go du jour and the two logical de jour and first piece over 20-1 flashiest underneath.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with nothing like you to try to beat the favorite, as we kind of touched on. Go with the other Baffert, get a nice price, and have that horse off the pace. And then, yeah, unfortunately, even though we were talking about, it feels like damn near every horse in the last race, we didn't get to touch on my horse that I was very excited about.
All you, man.
But
go for it.
I think flashiest. I mean, if you get 20-1, I'll be thrilled. I know from some of our West Coast guys, Ryan touched on with Leonard Powell, how they've been doing and how exciting that barn is. And for me, flashiest is one. I love the name because I feel like the replay really shows it. If you look at this one 2 back. The trip to Torrey gave this horse was simply incredible. I get they went fast, but this horse had absolutely zero business winning, and then all of a sudden just freaked and went by. And I thought last time too just didn't quite get the same sort of setup, but I think there should be enough, relatively enough pace, and I think this one maybe will be a little bit closer. And again, if you're getting 20-1, to me that's insane. I think also, we touched on first piece and Astronomer kind of got more ideal setups with how close they were to the lead to then be able to go by, whereas this one was coming from the clouds and was flying late, just didn't quite have enough time to catch them. And again, like I said, I think the reality is a lot of the money is going to come in on first piece and de jour, and I lean more towards de jour, but if I can get a 20-1 horse that's going to be flying late under either of these, it'll pay nicely.
Yeah, no, absolutely, my friend. Obviously, the reverse key trifecta, as the boss would call it. But either way, man, good luck with your best bets. And I'll get into mine real quick. Mine is actually, it's pretty similar to what some people have had. I talked about how much I like Gold Phoenix in race number 5. I'm hoping the 5-2 either sticks or maybe get a little bit higher in the Del Mar handicap. Obviously going, I believe it's for Gold Phoenix's 3rd win in a row in this race, if I'm not mistaken. Ran fantastic last time, just got boxed, absolutely nowhere to go, galloped out with Johannes. So definitely looking for this one to get a cleaner trip and fly home late with the rails down at Del Mar. Hopefully it'd be a little more conducive to horses closing from off the pace. And I know distance will not be an issue. So Gold Phoenix on the win end for me, and race 10 going a big double 3-3. That is Dr. Venkman into du jour, just based on price. I'm sure I'm not going to get that much, but I'm probably going to get middling to high, I think single digit odds, because I think Adair Manners, as Ryan touched on earlier, is going to be hammered in that race. So I think no matter what, it'll pay pretty decent. Going big 3-3 and a small 3-9 between Dr. Venkman into first piece. I think if Mike Smith can navigate a really good trip, I think that horse, since there's not a whole lot of pace on in that last race, I think he can navigate a pretty good trip there. Before we leave, everyone, again, thank you guys all so much for joining the show. And again, Ryan, you've done fantastic, man. Greatly appreciate you coming on. Going to give the floor to you here for a sec. And if people want to follow you, I know, again, we talked about your podcast a little bit here, and those links are in the description. But Ryan, just try and tell the people where they can find you and hopefully give you a follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. You can follow me on X or on Twitter at 20 lengths clear. My YouTube channel is The Gallop Out. I'll have a couple episodes coming out tomorrow. Weekly episode with Jackson Muniz, where we go over the late pick 5 on the Sunday card at Del Mar. So I'm looking forward to that. And then something else I'm really looking forward to tomorrow is I'm going to have talk some Pacific Classic stakes with Carl Broberg, recently retired trainer and professional handicapper. He's going to be at the handicapping contest on Saturday at Del Mar. I met him there for the qualifier and reached back out. So I'm excited to have him on, talk about his awesome training career where he was North America's leading trainer for 4 straight years. So I'm looking forward to, just getting a little bit of insight from him, seeing how a professional trainer kind of accesses the handicapping world, maybe from a different perspective than the 4 of us do, and kind of some other people knowing kind of the ins and outs of that. I love being on here. Obviously I'll keep posting pick 5s on Twitter. Yep. I'm never going to call it X. It's always going to be Twitter. I'll keep posting pick 5s on there, pick 6s, because that's what I swing for, and that's where the most fun's at.
Look, like I said, I would love to have you back whenever you want. Like I said, you've done absolutely fantastic here. And again, go subscribe to his YouTube and follow him on X. He does, like I said, great handicapping ideas, tickets, obviously smashing him this past week. Only will continue into Pacific Classic Day, because me and him are very similar. And of course, we won't lose come Saturday. But again, thank you guys all so much for joining in. Greatly appreciate it. We've had a fantastic chat all night, fantastic viewership. So again, if you guys are new here, please go down below and hit the subscribe button. And if you're not, and if you're coming back anyway, why not? You're here again. So please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you guys enjoyed the podcast. A few guys late coming in. I saw James just joined here. Thanks so much, James. And Marco Perez from LA Pop's horse running in first at Del Mar. Dory Miller, the number 4. She's feeling great. Marco, good luck there. And of course, good luck to everybody this Saturday on Pacific Classic Day at Del Mar. For my co-hosts, Noah Maher, Charlie Freeman, and special guest co-host Ryan Anderson at 20 Lengths Clear, I've been Kyle Roscoe, and episode 97 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, covering Pacific Classic Day at Del Mar, all graded stakes. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.